Hey, hello, I'm Kråkan, also known as Corvus Cornix, and welcome to Classy Movie Rambles, where I talk about old movies that I found in my closet while cleaning. This week's movie is Princess Mononoke, and it's a Studio Ghibli movie from 1997, and it's about 2 hours and 4 minutes long. And the movie starts with an opening narration of times have changed and whatnot, and a monster is creeping in the forest. And then cutting to the main character of Ashitaka, and he's this prince of a gone by era, and he's riding a deer of all kind of creatures called jackal, and he rides to an open field into a watchtower where an old man is watching. He climbs up the tower, and the old man and he watches in the forest. There's something wrong, and this creature bursts out from the forest. It's an angry boar god, basically a big boar. In Japanese folk culture, gods often are associated with animals, and they're often bigger than the counterparts, and they're more intelligent. But this creature is possessed by some kind of evil spirit or something, and it attacks the watchtower and brings it down, and then it goes for the main town. And Ashitaka tries to calm it down, but the god is not responding to him, so he kills the god, and he gets infected by whatever infected the god in the first place. So Ashitaka gets some ointment for his wound by an old lady, the village elder, I guess, and she also talks to the dying boar and asks for forgiveness for what they've done, but he won't forgive him. And Ashitaka is brought into the council, basically, and he is told by the woman she's doing some kind of magic with bones and rocks and whatnot. And she tells him that this is really bad. This boar came from far, far away, and he got shot by this iron bullet, like from a gun. And he was really upset and angry, and it's a lot of pain and suffering. And Ashitaka got infected by the god because the god touched him before it died. So Ashitaka will suffer until he dies, and that's his curse. So he is supposed to go west, I think, in some direction, whatever. I think it was west, and he's supposed to find the one responsible, because that might break the curse. And so he becomes exiled. He's no longer a prince, and he leaves everything behind, and he cuts his hair. And I think it's his sister or his friend gives him a token of appreciation. Even though it's forbidden, she gives him a dagger, like a crystal dagger, and it becomes important later on in the story. So he leaves the town behind, and sooner than later he sees smoke on the horizon, and he goes to check it out. And there is this battle between peasants and samurai, and he gets caught in the crossfire. And Ashitaka is one of those characters. He doesn't want violence. He just wants things to be peaceful between all kinds of parts, because that's the way he was brought up. One with the nature, just be calm and peaceful. So two samurai warriors attack him, and he fires an arrow in self-defense, and he decapitates one of them, and the other, I think, loses his arm, because the strength of this kind of thing that is infected his arm makes him more strong. And it kind of also, when like he feels angry, he gets stronger, so he kind of gets away from those guys. And then cutting to him in a town trying to buy rice from a lady, and he of course doesn't have any currency. He just have gold, so he put up this small golden nugget, and the woman says, "I'm not gonna take that, I need real hard cash or something." And this other kind of guy that's called Jiko, which is this short kind of Wario looking guy from the Super Mario series, comes up and tells the woman, like, this is worth at least 3 bags of rice or something like that. And then Jiko follows Ashitaka, and they get followed by 3 men that are after a gold, so they run away from him. And then they stay for the night. They have this campfire and they cook food, and Ashitaka shows Jiko the bullet, and he kind of tells a story about the gods and whatnot, and which direction he might need to travel. And in the morning, Ashitaka leaves to this location. And then cutting to a group, a caravan exporting goods to a place called Iron Town, which will become important in a little bit. And they get attacked by other forest gods. They're basically big wolves, and two of the cubs attack the oxes and the men, and and they're basically being defended by this old lady Yubushi or Iabusa or something like that, and basically defending them and war up the works and whatnot. And then cutting to Ashitaka actually finding one of the men in the water next to this path, and he helps him up, and he basically puts him away against a tree or something, and he finds one other in the water that is totally unconscious, and he basically grabs them, puts them back in a place, and then he sees something on the other side of the river, and it's the big she-wolf, the cub's mom, and there's this strange girl that is helping the wolf getting rid of it, because the big wolf has also been shot. So the girl is basically sucking out the blood and spitting it out, and he confronts them all and says his purpose, like who he is. He says that he's Ashitaka and he's looking for the forest god, and he might be needing their assistance, but they don't care about him. They just leave, and he returns to these two injured men. One of them is broken an arm, I think, and the other one is totally unconscious and doesn't know what's going on. And the one who is conscious is actually scared because he sees a forest spirit like Kodama, and they're basically these, like, from if you ever played like Wind Waker, those kind of Kråkan kind of, they're basically tree people, and they are attached to big trees. They're tree spirits, and it appears and it disappears. And Ashitaka, they later repair lots of them, and he actually asks them to guide them through, make them safe, like have a safe passage through the woods. And he follows one of them, and he carries the unconscious guy on his back, and Jackal carries the other guy with a broken arm. And they eventually reach the heart of the forest, which is the forest god's domain. And it's like this clearing which is forbidden for normal people, and I think only animals can be there or something. But they stay for the night, and they take a rest at least. And Ashitaka actually sees a flock of deers moving in the sunlight, and he sees the forest god, the deer god as it's called. And his arms start to act up really funny. It started twitching and everything, like the curse gets activated. Oh, excuse me. And then he just puts his hand down in the water to like calm it down, because this clearing has a lot of water sources. And then the deer god leaves, and the thing in his arm calms down, and he doesn't really know what to make of it. But they continue on, and eventually they get out of the forest, and they basically get to the place of Iron Town, because one of the they're actually where the two guys came from, and they take him across the water into the town. And of course the captain, I think his name is Gonzo or something, he's upset about this, and he doesn't like strangers, so he doesn't really like Ashitaka. And then instead, and this is kind of a funny scene, this one of the guys says, like the men's ladies, like women, approaches him, and he thinks like he's gonna go easy on him, but she really kind of yells at him like, why couldn't you just die? You're more pain alive, or something like that. And then he yells at she yells at her husband, and then he yells at the captain, and then Lady Iyobushi arrives and says like, this stranger is welcome, just stay there and rest a bit. And they go to like this tavern, and the women are of course all over him, because there's this new handsome guy, and that's like, it's kind of stupid like how things work, because they're kind of isolated in this little town, I guess. But Ashitaka is told to rest, and then the women ask him if he can visit their workplace, which he of course says he will, and then they giggle, and then they leave. And later the men talk to Ashitaka, and they tell a story about how they were in conflict with the boar god in the beginning, and then Iyobusa, or Yabusa, I never get this name right, she showed up with her guns, and they defeated this boar god and drove most of the tribes away. And then Ashitaka goes to talk to Iyobusa, and shows him his infecting in his arm, and he shows her the bullet and tells him the story, what actually happened. and he tells her exactly why he's there. And she basically tells him that she doesn't have any secrets at all. So they walk to her private garden, which is also the gun shop. And he just wants this stupid thing to end, but she doesn't really give a damn. She just want to keep doing what she's doing, and she is actually planning to kill off the forest god. And I think she actually asks him for like help, because she believes that the blood of the forest god can actually bring, like the deer god, can actually cure him of his infection. But Ashitaka doesn't. He's angry, and that activates his curse, and he tries to grab his sword, but he's forcing his other hand not, so he won't draw it. And then one of the sick older men in the gun shop speaks up, and he has the same curse as Ashitaka, but he's much too weak because it's spread too much. He's about to die. So he tells Ashitaka to spare Iobusa's life because she's kind to his kind, because most of these people that work in the gun shop, they're all kind of teared up lepers and they're sick, but she treats them with some kind of respect and like they're their own. So Ashitaka kind of calms himself down, and then Iobusa and Ashitaka goes to the roof of the gun shop, and Iobusa kind of fires a flare, I think, so it lights up the hill. And they used to chop down the trees in the hill to basically fuel the furnaces, which melt the iron. And every night the monkeys, goes out and plant these seeds to make the forest grow back again. And Iobusa kind of explains, like, if they weren't for this gods, they would just be mindless animals basically, and they would not ever go back again. There wouldn't be a problem, because the furnace is melting iron all around the clock basically. And if they stop, that's a bad thing, because they take a lot of time to get them running again, I guess. And then cutting to Princess Mononoke, or also known as San, and the two cups, and they're standing up a hill overlooking the Iron Town. And then they rush in for an attack, and San goes in by herself. And Ashitaka kind of realizes that he's there, or she is there, and he goes out there to stop it. And there's a confrontation between Iobusa and San, because San basically is the kind of spiritual daughter of the she-wolf goddess of Mora, and Iobusa is the leader of Iron Town. They represent like industry and nature, and they fight. And Ashitaka goes to stop it, and he gets angry, and he activates the power, and it kind of activates by itself. And Gonza gets in the way, but he just bends his katana because he's so strong, kind of bends it. And then he goes in and he stops, like, because he's so strong because of the curse, he actually stops them mid-attack, and he knocks Mononoke unconscious, and as well as Lady Yobushi, and he tells the women to take Yobushi away, and he will return Mononoke to the forest, basically, to the wolves. And one of the ladies in the crowd wants revenge because the wolves killed her husband or something, and as he's walking off, he gets shot in the chest, but due to the power of the curse, he can actually continue to move. He uses the strength, and he's basically tearing him apart from the inside, but he's also strong. So he's carrying the princess on his back, and he's going to the gate, and the gatekeeper kind of says, like, I won't open the gate for you, but I can't just let you leave. And he kind of pushes with his hand against the gate, and the gatekeeper kind of says, you need at least 10 men to move this gate. And he is pressed against the gate, and he starts to bleed because the pressure and everything bleeds even more than before, because it's an open wound. And he moves the gate, and he walks out, and outside the wolves are waiting for him, and he kind of explains to them, because they're kind of smart animals, they're basically sons and daughters of a god. So he basically tells them what happened, and they ride away he rides on Jackal, and he has the princess unconscious in front of her, and he falls unconscious, and he falls off of Jackal, and the princess kind of stops, and the monkeys kind of appear, and they kind of want to eat Ashitaka, because if they eat him they will gain his power, so they can overthrow the humans. And the princess kind of says, like, you don't want to eat him because then you will turn into something far worse than a human. And the wolves kind of hunt them off, and they take him to the forest god's kind of resting area, to his lands, basically, to heal him up. So at night, the deer god is sort of this spectral kind of giant that moves through the forests. In the daytime he turns into this deer god. And Yiko kind of sees this, because he's not actually a good guy at all. He works for the emperor, and he has a permission to kill the forest god. That's why he's there. And he's also kind of like this double agent, sometimes off and on helping Iabusa. And he's dressed up like a wild hunter. He has like bear skin on him and everything. And he's basically a tracker, I think they call him. But then Yiko also spots like thousands of Borgs heading in one direction. They're basically heading for Irontown. They're basically heading for war, or more or less they are going for the clearing with the forest, where the forest god is, to basically get his blessing or something. And then cutting to, or more or less explaining, Yiko explains that the big gray boar is named Otoko, and he's this old kind of war-beaten but kind of wise Borg that leads this tribe, because their old leader has kind of died. And then cutting to Ashitaka, and he's basically been healed by the forest god during the night, and he doesn't even notice this. But he noticed that after some time, he realized that his curse is still left, but the wound, the gunshot wound, is healed. And then Jackal has been there, the deer, or his mount, basically. And then Sun arrives basically in good spirit, and now she kind of likes him, and he's too weak to eat, so she helps him chew the food and basically feed him mouth to mouth. And then the boar arrives, and they are basically kind of upset, like, what is going on? Why is there a human in this realm? He's not supposed to be here. And they're kind of angry at him. And then the she-wolf is there to kind of defend him a bit, or more or less because she kind of understands the importance, I guess, but she's playing along. So in this like speech, and this is kind of the translation thing, which is kind of weird, and in the Japanese version of with the voice actress or voice actors, the female wolf, the she-wolf, is played by a male, and I think that's kind of to Japanese mythology and culture to kind of impose like greatness, because the gender kind of isn't important. It's just the voice is there to assume power. But in the English dub of this version, it's actually a female, and I think the female kind of thing kind of fits more of it. But they kind of talk and argue, and then Otoko arrives, and he kind of explains to him that he was the one that killed their leader in the first place, but it was in self-defense, and he got punished by getting this curse on him that would kill him. And he also got here to get rid of the curse, but the forest god is like a life and death god in sense, and he didn't actually cure him of the curse. He actually let him live with the pain and suffering of what he's done. He's kind of fair like that. And then that's also what the wolves explain, is that the god gives and takes. So basically what's going to happen now is that Otoko will go to the war with Irontown no matter what's happening, and the next time he will see Ashitaka, he will actually kill him. And then cutting to Iabusa fighting off some samurai that wants the iron from Irontown, basically. Excuse me. And then the samurai actually send in some guys to negotiate on the emperor's behalf, because they want the iron, basically. Because the sand of the lake is rich with iron, but they kind of fend them off because they're self-dependent. And then actually Yiko and Iabusa kind of talk about what's going to happen, and he has the permission to kind of from the emperor to kill this forest god. And he's also sneaky, because he have this like scheming plan of actually taking the glory from himself, because he's kind of like as I said it before, like a warrior character, kind of an asshole basically. And then Jiko's men joins the town's army, but they don't like him. They know that they're bad scum and kind of trappers. And then cutting to Ashitaka recovering in the wolf's den. And he's restless, so he goes outside to get some fresh air. And he talks to Moro, the she-wolf. And she doesn't like him all that much. But she tells him that basically she will kill him if he is there by dawn, so he will leave at first light basically. But of course he oversleeps, and when he goes out there, every of the cubs and the wolves are gone. They're prepping for war. But Jackal is there, and one of the cubs lead him out in their clearing. And what happens then is that Ashitaka asks the cub to take the token that he got from the beginning of the movie from his sister or friend, to give it to Sun basically. And then cutting to Sun and Moro overlooking the battlefield, and and the Sun is basically asking Moro what they're doing because it smells awful, and they're just burning coal to anger the forest creatures and draw them out, and also weaken their senses because of the smoke and everything. And Sun kind of says like it must be a trap or something, and Moro says yes, it's a trap, but the boars will attack regardless of what's happening. And then Sun kind of decides that she wants to help Otoko, the old grey boar, because he's blind. I forgot to tell that. So he needs a pair of eyes basically in the battle. Even though he's wise, he can't see. So basically what happens, one of the cubs actually arrives with the token that Ashitaka had and gives it to her, and she kind of accepts it. So there's kind of like this kind of acceptance, and it's a bit of a love story, or they at least like each other. And then she rides off to basically help the boars fight the humans. And then cutting to Ashitaka going into Irontown basically, and Jackal kind of jumps over a couple of samurais because meanwhile Jiko's forces and Yabusa's forces are fighting the boars and the wolves. The women of the town are left to defend for themselves. So the samurai basically took the opportunity to attack, and they are kind of laying siege to the thing. So Ashitaka kind of arrives to the big kind of log wall and they basically tell him what's happened, and they kind of like him now for some reason, and he gets his bow back and arrows, and then he gets chased off by some samurai, and he uses his weapons to take him out, but Jackal, the deer that he rides, is kind of wounded, excuse me, but he kind of limps, and he actually gets to the end of like a cliff or something, and there's this big mass grave of people, and they explain what happens. They used like power and like bombs to destroy most of the boar, and they're kind of mortally wounded them, and there's like this mass grave with boars and people and whatnot. And what happens is that the Jiko's men, they don't really trust Ashitaka, so they're against him basically, but the townsfolk kind of trust him because he's bringing the news of what's actually happening in Irontown at this moment. Like, the women are weak now, they need your help, guys. This is a pointless war. And then he kind of sees something moving among the corpses, and he realized that one of the wolves is trapped there. So he actually tries to help him out, but Jiko's men try to, I think they kind of have like these poison kind of blow darts. They try to fire at him because they're kind of hunters in some weird way. And then the townsfolk overpower him, and they actually help Ashitaka because he's still weak, help him to lift one of the Borgs or the people corpses to get the wolf out. And then Ashitaka goes with the cub that he is newly freed to basically confront Iebusha about what's happening. And then cutting to Iebusha and Jiko actually prepping to kill the forest god, which is an endeavor in itself. And then Otoko is dying, the big Borg god from before, and he's basically trying to get to the forest god's place. But Sun kind of confronts her about, like, he thinks that the warriors around them are actually his kin, but they're actually the headhunters in the Borg skins that they've taken on themselves. And he thinks that they're back from the dead, so he rushes to the to the forest clearing where the god is. But at this time, he's also consumed by the rage and the curse. And he's infected by this parasite and anger. So he actually arrives on the spot, and the Moro is also there, and she's like mortally wounded, lying in the water. And basically, what happens is that he kind of dies. And Ashitaka confronts Iyabusha and on what's been happening, and he tells her basically that the women in the town needs their help to defend against the samurai because it's not going really well. And then he rides off to save Sun basically, and she has been trapped on the boar god's kind of head because he's trying to stop him, and now he's fully consumed by his rage and his thing. And Moro is having none of this, and she was saving her strength to basically kill the Yabusa in person because they are both from different worlds. But she uses one of her last strengths to actually try to dig into to the parasite and actually get her daughter back. And Ashitaka tries as well, and the headhunter's trying to stop him, but then the cubs attack, and there is all out of chaos, and Ashitaka managed to somehow free Sun from the god. And what happens then is that the deer god appears, and Yabusha takes the shot and he shoots it right through the head or the neck, but it doesn't wound him because he's some immortal god in this form. He can't be killed. So he just continues on, and he kills Motoko, and Moro also falls. And then he starts to turn into his spectral, like Nightwalker. He turned to this spectral giant form, and at this time Lady Yabusha fires at the neck of the creature, which severs it from its natural body in the change. So what happens is, like, the body of the dying god, now the headless god, its blood is kind of corrosive and deadly because, as I said before, it's like two shapes, and the day shape is a living god of like life, and at night is a death god that touches everything. So what happens is the blood kind of kills everything that is around it, and the headhunters try, and Jiko is with them, of course. He tries to grab the head and just put it in a bucket. And then Moro's head bites off Yabushi's hand in one last kind of bite, because there's like an old Japanese saying, like, a severed wolf head can still bite. And then later Ashitaka saves Yabushi and Gonza from death from the forest creature's blood, and they go across the water. And of course Sun is enraged by this. Then the faceless god, or the headless god, looks for his head, and he kind of puts his hands into the nature and everything, and it dies because he looks for his head. And it's kind of like this sad thing that everything is around and is kind of dying. And then Sun and Ash at Ashitaka basically confronts Jiko and the other head bearers, and they're basically trying to get away with the head, because when the sun goes up, this headless god would disappear because he doesn't have his head is not complete or something. So that will make it unwhole, and then they will have the head of the emperor for the emperor, and then they will have a lot of gold and prosperity, I guess. But they battle. The Sun and Ashitaka battles him, and eventually they get trapped at this like a rock, and there's no way to go. And Jiko kind of realized that, okay, we have to. He kind of he doesn't want to return the head, but then again, there's nothing else to do. So Sun and Ashitaka raises up the head of the forest god so that he can reclaim it, which he does, and they get poured by the blood, but it's not corrosive and deadly at this point. And both of them get infected by the parasite, and it spreads on them. But the god kind of gets his head back. And it's kind of the end of it all, because now the god has actually returned to his form, but he kind of falls on Irontown and he dissolves, and it kind of like the fires of the Irontown kind of go out, but the battle is over and everybody rejoices over what's happening basically, and everything turns green again because of the influence of the forest spirit. But now there are no more gods basically to speak of. Now they're died off. The forest gods are gone, and there's basically natural peace to everything. So what happens is that Lady Obushi goes back to Iron Town, and Sun and Ashitaka kind of parts way because she is part of the forest anyway. She wants to go back to the forest, and he will stay in Iron Town and help them rebuild it basically. And he will visit her sometimes, but they're kind of on friendly terms at this point anyway. And then Yiko gives up on his quest and kind of like, whatever, it's fine, I'll do something else. And then it is the end sequence. There is one last Kodama left that appears and disappears, and that's the like a little sign of hope and what's yet to come, that nature isn't truly just gone and there's still some magic in this world. So what do I think of this movie? It's actually one of the better movies. And it was made in 1997, I think, and actually I think it's a lot more better than the previous movie, Spirited Away. It's actually, I think it was the first Studio Ghibli movie that I actually saw, and my brother had like a friend that had a lot of DVDs, and I was like, what is this kind of Ghibli stuff? What is this? And he kind of looked at the movie, and it was like this whole kind of artistry, and it was beautiful nature and landscape and a lot of painstaking, because at this time there wasn't a lot of CG and everything was handcrafted, and it was really this beautiful message about environment and how you supposed to have this balance and don't go too far and don't pollute and destroy the environment. And a lot of Ghibli movies have that kind of statement that you should at least try to do good things and be a good person and always care about nature and stuff, because you have to leave it to the next generation, to your kids and grandkids and whatnot. So I can recommend this movie. If it's on TV, see it, because it had a really good message about how to be as a person, I guess. So anyway, thanks for watching and listening.